Okay, so in the last video we set up our first shot with our camera and we also dealt with the audience's animation. In this video we're going to take a look at the cameras for shot 2 and for shot 3. We're looking at the storyboard for shot 2 here, and we can see that the shot begins with our character to the right of the screen, and he's going to jump towards the left of the screen. So we'll also notice then that we're looking back away from the audience, so we're looking towards the back of the stage. So we can set this up very quickly. We'll jump over into Houdini, create a camera, and it's going to be a static camera, so we just need to deal with getting our camera angle set up. Then we'll jump back and take a look at shot 3. So let's jump over to Houdini, and I'm going to create another camera. So let's just zoom out. Create a camera by clicking on the camera in the shelf. I'm going to push enter to create that camera at the origin, and rename this to shot 02. And with this camera, I'm going to switch over to the shot 2 camera. I'm going to lock it to my current view so that I can tumble the camera around in the viewport and position it interactively. And I'm going to position it. If we jump back over to Photoshop, we can see the ball is going to jump from right towards left. That means as the ball is actually travelling in a straight direction, we obviously need to be on the right-hand side of that motion so that it appears that he's moving from right to left as opposed to from left to right. So we need to be on the right-hand side of this line of action, and such that the ball starts towards the right of the screen, so towards the right, and then as the ball moves, I'm going to hide out our bleachers so that we actually get some feedback. He's going to move towards the left of the screen, so this will actually work perfectly for us. I'm happy also in terms of the camera angle. We're not too high above the character and we're not too low. We're down on the level with the character.
Now, did you want that much of his head getting cut off at the top of the camera? Not bad there. Right there, it jumps almost all the way off.
It's going to be inevitable for the last couple of bounces, but I will... Let's just bring the camera up very slightly and pan down a little. That should be enough to stop him.
Yeah, that's better.
That's better for that jump, and then that jump out of frame. Yeah, that works much nicer. Fantastic. So with that, that's shot 2 in place. That was a nice, simple, static camera. And let's jump over to Photoshop and bring up shot 3. Shot 3 is more interesting because we're going to have an animated camera. The camera is going to start looking towards the ladder and the audience, and the ball is going to enter from the right of the shot and jump towards the ladder. And then as the ball climbs the ladder, we're going to track with the ball. The camera is going to track up the ladder with the ball and pan around so that by the end of the climb, we're now on the right-hand side of the character. We're going to hold this particular composition for a small amount of time whilst the ball does the first couple of jumps. As the ball is going towards the final jump, the camera is going to do kind of like a crane move. So we're going to move up and over the character so that we're looking down. So between here and the final jump, we're going to reveal the pool below. The character is then going to be in its final jump doing a backflip down into the pool. So just to recap, we start looking at the ladder and the audience. The character jumps in from the right of the frame towards the ladder. We'll track up the ladder as the character moves up the ladder, and we'll pan around to the right at the same time. We'll hold this composition for the first few jumps. Towards the end of the preparatory jump, before the final jump, we're going to crane over to look at the character, and then we're going to see the character dive into the pool. So let's jump over into Houdini and create another camera. So I'm going to create another camera by clicking on the camera and pushing enter to create it at the origin. I'm going to rename this to shot 03, and I'm going to bring shot 03 as my camera that I'm looking through, noticing that I am still locked to that camera, which is going to enable me to position it interactively. Now you'll notice that the character is entering from the right of the frame and moving towards the left, which means again we're on... As I explode everything, let's grab our shot 3. There we go. Again, we're on this side of the character, which is actually an interesting point in terms of cinematography and that, because we don't cross the line of action, which means things will flow and they'll make sense. So we're going to be on this side of the character, and he's going to enter from the right and move towards the ladder. Now we are going to be down almost at the same level as the character. Something something like that will probably work quite nicely. I do want to bring in the audience and see how that's working with the rest of that shot. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. So the character's going to, let's hide out our audience, so this is going to kill playback. Character's going to enter from screen right and move up to the ladder. So let's key our camera in terms of translations and rotations around here. So I'm going to alt left click on translate and rotate to key this current position for our camera, noticing we do have shot 3 still selected down here in the network editor. And then as the character moves up the ladder, we're going to track with the character and rotate, pan and rotate around to the right. Now to do the track, I'm actually going to unlock from the camera and move out so we can see the camera. And as the character moves up to the top of the ladder, I'm going to manually change the translate Y value. So let's bring up the value slider. And let's switch over to our shot camera so that we're at around the correct level for the top. And with that in place, I'm also then going to grab control again back over the view and bring us round to the right hand side, and also dolly in a little so we're framed up more closely, because we want to be framed up on the diving board as such. So also then we're going to be slightly greater angles, something around like that will probably work quite nicely. I do again want to bring in the bleachers to make sure that everything works in terms of composition with the bleachers. I'm fairly happy with that because it's the camera is going to do that crane motion over. If we look at our storyboard here, the bleachers are in a fairly similar configuration. We're maybe slightly higher up than originally intended in the storyboard, and I don't want quite as much of an angle as in this particular storyboard. I personally prefer a composition something like this. You'll notice AutoKey has taken care of all the keyframes for me, so I don't have to worry about those. If we hide out the bleachers and our scrub, as the character is moving up the ladder, our camera is going to track along with the character, dollying in very slightly and panning around. We also notice though that it really feels in the center of that motion that our camera is leading and that the character is following, and that's never a good thing. The character should be leading the motion of the camera. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up the translate Y in our channel editor. I'm going to shift middle click translate Y and push H to home that up. I'm simply going to modify the tangents to give a different acceleration to the curve such that our character never ends up in this bottom portion of the frame. So that simply means that we need to not accelerate as quickly at the beginning. So something like that. If we then close out the channel editor and scrub. So yeah, that's much nicer. The character feels like it's driving the camera motion and not the other way around, whereas before the camera was racing ahead of the character, which is unnatural. So we're going to have the first few bounces here on the end of the diving board. And by the end of there's the final bounce. As we're coming down for this final bounce, I want the camera to have basically craned over to look at the top. So I'll probably start that motion here. So we've got the first bounce, the second bounce going just out of the camera. And as we come down and start to do the next bounce, we're going to move over to reveal the pool. So I'm going to alt left click translate and rotate to hold us at this current position. And then just as we're about to start that final bounce, I'm going to bring the camera over and we're going to look down at the pool. So it's something like that. How's the compare with the bleachers in the view? So let's dolly out a little so we can actually see our audience. And something around there works fairly well. How's that compare with our storyboard? Something around there. There's slightly more of the ladder in view. The ladder's not really important at this point because, well, we'll come to see when we do the lighting, the ladder's actually not going to be illuminated at this point. So I'm actually happier having the ladder mainly out of view and having the focus on the character, the pool, and the audience that are watching the character. So with that in place, we've automatically created keyframes. We've got auto key enabled, which means if I unhide hide our bleachers so we actually get some playback. We've got the track up with the character. The character's going to do the first couple of bounces. Then the camera's going to crane over, revealing the pool, ready for that final bounce. Now the issue here is that the character's really leaving the top of the frame, so I'm actually going to find our keyframe for the camera, which is here. Let's dolly out further, move over, and let's see how that compares. Yeah, that's much better. I do not want the character to actually leave the frame. So we move over, character dives. If we bring back our audience, yeah, that works nicely in terms of composition. So with that, we've just put in place our third shots camera. So that's shot 2 and shot 3 wrapped up.
Go ahead and hide out the audience for just a minute and play back through the entire...
Oh, sure. Yeah, because we haven't actually done that. So we have got real time enabled. And if we play... Let's actually jump to where the animation's going to begin.
Yeah.
Nice. So the character enters from the right. We're going to track up with the character while panning around to the other side of the character. The character's going to do a couple of bounces, and then we're going to crane up over the character, revealing the pool. And the character's then going to dive into the pool below. Cool. So with that, that's going to conclude this video. Thanks a lot.